Unexpected justice. Judge Judy solves a wild bar fight.
Where are you watching from? Let me know in comment box and subscribe for more interesting stories.
It was a typical Thursday night in the heart of Manhattan, where the neon lights of bars and pubs cast a warm glow against the cool evening air. Inside a popular local dive bar, the atmosphere was buzzing with laughter, music, and clinking glasses. But amidst the crowd, one woman sat quietly at the back booth, observing. Judge Judy Scheindlin was known for her no-nonsense approach to justice, but tonight, she wasn't in her courtroom. She'd decided to take a rare night off. Dressed in a black leather jacket and sunglasses, her famous demeanor still radiated power, though most of the patrons had no idea who she was. Judy sipped her drink, lost in thought, when a sudden crash broke through the chatter. The sound of glass shattering echoed across the bar, followed by a loud, bellowing voice. "You cheated me! I don't care what you say!" The voice was unmistakable. Mike, a burly man with a bad attitude who had been loudly arguing with his friend all night over a pool game. From across the room, Judge Judy could see the two men, Mike and Tim, standing by the pool table, fists clenched and eyes blazing with fury. The bartender was nervously watching the scene unfold. Without missing a beat, Judge Judy stood up, the room feeling like it suddenly grew quieter, as if the very air recognized her presence. Her hand raised, commanding silence. "Enough!" she called out, her voice cutting through the chaos. It wasn't a suggestion. It was an order. The two men froze, their argument halting as if struck by a bolt of lightning. Mike turned to her with a sneer. "Who the hell do you think you are, lady?" Judge Judy didn't flinch. Her steely gaze locked on Mike, and the entire bar seemed to hold its breath. "I'm someone who's seen far worse than your pathetic excuse for a fight, and you two are making a fool of yourselves." The crowd's murmurs grew louder, curiosity peaking as they realized something more was unfolding. A woman in control, a woman who wasn't afraid to speak her mind. Who was this woman? Mike, clearly intoxicated, stepped closer, his broad frame towering over Judy. "You think you can just come in here and tell us what to do? This is between me and him." He jabbed his finger at Tim. Tim, the smaller of the two, looked flustered, avoiding eye contact. "We were just playing pool, Mike. It's no big deal," he muttered, clearly uncomfortable with the escalating confrontation. "Oh, it's a big deal, all right," Mike barked. "He hustled me, and I want my money back." He pretended like he didn't know what he was doing, then sunk the 8-ball on purpose. He pointed at Tim, his anger turning into a full-on rage. Tim, defensive, put his hands up. "I didn't cheat. You're just upset because you lost. Maybe you should have focused instead of making dumb bets you didn't even remember." His voice cracked, frustration pouring out. Judge Judy stepped forward, her presence undeniable. The crowd fell silent, their eyes on her. "Okay, enough talk. Let's get this sorted out because clearly neither of you know how to act like adults." She turned to Mike. "What exactly happened, in your expert opinion?" Mike crossed his arms, glaring at her. "He was hustling me. He took my money, and when I wasn't looking, he made a sneaky shot and sunk the 8-ball. He knew exactly what he was doing." Judy's lips curled into a wry smile. "Hustling, huh? I'm sure that's exactly what happened." She looked at Tim. "What do you say?" Tim swallowed hard, clearly scared of the situation. "I wasn't hustling. It was just a game. He was betting like crazy, and I couldn't keep up with him. I didn't do anything wrong, Judge, I swear." Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. Hustling or not, there was something bigger here. The twist is that Judge Judy's instincts kicked into overdrive. Something about this entire scene didn't sit right. As she observed the men, the bartender, and the crowd, a thought struck her like lightning. What if this wasn't about a simple pool game at all? "All right," she said, her voice sharp and commanding. "I've had enough of this nonsense. Let's get to the bottom of it. I want witnesses, and I want to know exactly what happened from start to finish. No more lying, no more excuses." A silence fell over the room. Then, just as Judy was about to speak again, the bartender, the same man who had been watching the argument nervously, raised his hand. "Your Honor," he said, his voice wavering slightly, "I saw everything, the whole thing." Judge Judy's eyes lit up with sudden interest. Finally, a witness with a brain. The bartender stepped forward and, with a hesitant glance at Mike, began to explain. You see, Tim and Mike had been playing pool for hours, and at first, it was just for fun. But Mike started getting more and more aggressive. He'd been betting more than he should have, even though he couldn't remember how much. He kept raising the stakes, and Tim, well, he was trying to keep up. When Mike made a big bet, he wasn't paying attention, and that's when Tim made the shot. Judy leaned in, her focus razor sharp. So you're saying that Mike wasn't paying attention? The bartender nodded. Exactly. He got so wrapped up in his bets that he didn't notice when Tim made the final shot. Tim didn't hustle him. He just played a clean game. Mike's the one who got distracted and lost control. Judy's eyes flicked to Mike, who was still fuming, his face flushed with anger. So, let me get this straight, Mike. You lost your temper because you couldn't keep track of your own bets? Mike clenched his jaw, looking like he wanted to explode, but something in Judy's unyielding stare kept him in check. The bartender, sensing the tension, added, And Mike broke the glass himself when he punched the wall. It was all his doing. Judy nodded slowly, her gaze piercing. So it wasn't Tim's fault after all, was it? Mike's face turned scarlet. He opened his mouth to argue, but the words caught in his throat. Judge Judy crossed her arms, her expression unwavering. There's a word for people like you, Mike. It's called accountability. You failed to keep track of your bets, you lost your temper, and now you want to blame someone else for your own shortcomings. How pathetic. The crowd, which had been holding its breath, let out a collective gasp. Even Mike seemed to shrink under her intense scrutiny. The verdict Judge Judy stepped back, taking a long, deliberate look at the two men. Here's the deal. Tim, you didn't hustle him. You didn't cheat. You played a clean game. And Mike? Well, Mike, you owe Tim an apology, and you owe the bar for the broken glass. You're paying for that damage. If you don't like it, take it up with your own reflection. Tim, now visibly relieved, nodded. I'm sorry for causing any trouble, Mike. I didn't mean for things to get out of hand. Mike, still fuming but now embarrassed, muttered a half-hearted apology. Fine. I'm sorry. Happy now? Judy nodded with satisfaction. Good. Now pay for the glass, shake hands, and for the love of everything that is decent, stop embarrassing yourselves. Mike and Tim exchanged a reluctant handshake, the tension between them slowly deflating. As the bar returned to its normal hum of activity, Judge Judy leaned back in her booth, watching with a smirk on her face. She had handled the situation with a firm hand, and everything was back in order. She wasn't just a judge in a courtroom, she was a judge everywhere. The bartender walked up, shaking his head in disbelief. I didn't think you were serious when you said you were a judge. Judy's lips curled into a smile. In my world, there's only one way to do things, my way, and it's the right way. With that, she finished her drink and walked out of the bar, her reputation as a no-nonsense decision-maker only growing stronger.